guys, thank you so much for joining us for another one of IVHQ's webinars. This one is about volunteering in Asia. Everything you wanted to know about volunteering in Asia. Now, it's designed for those of you who are thinking about volunteering abroad in the future, especially in Asia, and you're just looking for more information on IVHQ in general and the programs that we offer. Today we've got Will Rowland is with us today. Will, you're in charge of our Asia programs, is that right?
Yeah, sure am. So yeah, I'm head of continent for Asia. So I manage the team here in the office that look after all the Asia programs.
So he's going to be able to obviously give us a whole heap of information here today. All the questions and the information that we've actually based this webinar on is all based on questions that we get a lot on social media, but also that you and your team would get on a daily basis, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, our team are really well, I guess, rehearsed in all these questions. They've been through all the programs that they look after. So they're in a good position to answer any questions that you guys have.
Now, if you're watching us live, thank you so much. You're more than welcome to ask any questions in our chat box, which is now open, and our team will get back in touch with you as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you're watching this on the YouTube version, feel free to add a comment below with any of the questions you've got, and one of our team will get back in touch and sort you out there as well. So, obviously, a bit of an introduction. IVHQ, we've got obviously quite a few destinations around Asia, is that right?
Yeah, so Asia's definitely loaded up in terms of the programs. We've got our main programs throughout Southeast Asia. So you've got your Cambodia. We've got a great program there that work in a number of destinations. You were in Thailand as well. I guess anywhere you could think of it in Asia, we probably have a program there. So Southeast Asia and then surrounding in sort of India and Sri Lanka and things as well.
And obviously quite a varied amount of volunteer projects that we have available as well. Tell us about some of the projects that you can volunteer on.
Yeah, hugely. So we've got your obviously we've got your teaching English, your childcare type projects, working with the children and things like that. We've also got a lot of construction and renovation projects, as well as some medical opportunities as well. So there's definitely a variety out there. So yeah, whatever you want to get involved with, I'm sure we could sort you out. And
how about like qualifications to be able to go on those projects? Some, I'm guessing, are going to require some sort of qualification?
It's the medical projects that do. So a lot of the time it's just a pre-med sort of qualification. So as long as you're on the pre-med track, then you can work on those. We do have some more qualified projects as well in terms of those who are fully qualified nurses or doctors. In terms of the other projects, so you're teaching English or your childcare, it's just really great to have those with, I guess, that native English speaking ability in those classrooms. English is obviously really valuable throughout Asia, so if you can help out in that way, I guess just having that base knowledge of English is really helpful. And then construction renovation, no qualifications needed there, but as long as you're prepared to get your hands dirty, then it'd be great.
And when you're actually on the placement, are you going to be working with other volunteers? Like how many other people are kind of with you at the same time and on the majority of the programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll always place you with at least one other volunteer. It's more than likely there'll be plenty of others. So you can expect to, I guess, live in accommodation with 4 to 5 other volunteers, and you'll probably be working with 4 to 5 other volunteers as well. Not, I guess, in the same classroom if you're doing teaching. You will either be working with one other volunteer in that setting or working by yourself if you choose to, depending on what your preference is there.
And how about actually getting to your placement as a volunteer? Like, are you travelling with others? Do you get taken to your placement? How does it all work?
Yeah, so you'll always travel with others. Because you're on the same placement as other people, then you'll obviously always have company there. Some of the locations are quite close to the accommodation. I'll use Philippines, for example. It's literally 5 steps away, so just across the road there. Whereas in, say, India or China, you'll catch a bus to your placement. And there's always support doing that, either from the local staff or if you've got an experienced volunteer, then they can sort of take the lead and show you to your placement. So I guess it's as long as you're comfortable taking the public transport and things, then you can go free. But if you're a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit unsure, then the local staff are there to help you in that regard.
Nice, and we'll talk a little bit more about the support that the local staff offer coming up shortly as well. But obviously, if we go back to the actual planning for your volunteer trip, obviously there is a lot that you've got to plan for when you're first deciding to go volunteer in Asia. One of the big ones that we get asked a lot is vaccinations. What's actually required and what would you recommend?
Yes, there's no legally required vaccinations for travelling in Asia. we do have a list of recommendations that we have there. Probably the main one for Asia is malaria. And that does tend to be a common question. Again, we do always recommend going to your local travel doctor. Obviously, they're in the best position to advise you on those sorts of things. We do have a list as well once you sort of come to us and apply or ask any questions. We've got a list of recommended ones to help you out too.
And how about visas with planning? Tough to come by around Asia, or is it relatively simple, or what's the process?
Yeah, it's relatively simple. So for the most part, volunteers will just be on a tourist visa. So I guess it's part of our, it makes it really easy for volunteers to be able to travel throughout Asia, is that for the most part you'll just be working with a tourist visa there. And we'll sort of help you through that process, but for the most part you can just get it on arrival when you head to the country that you're looking to volunteer in. But if there's any questions around that, or if there's any difference, then we can help you.
Nice. And how about if things go wrong? Travel insurance. Is it something that you'd recommend to take out travel insurance for these programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess traveling anywhere, you want to get out travel insurance. I guess it's just having that security blanket. For what it offers you and from what it can save you from, it's definitely worth the cost. World Nomads is a great option. That we've got a great relationship with them, and they offer good travel insurance for this sort of travel. So that would be, I guess, my first recommendation, and look into what they offer. They offer 2 different types of travel insurance there at different levels. So I'd look into those guys. And yeah, like I said, it's just a security blanket and making sure that you're covered in case anything does go wrong, whether that's lost baggage, whether that's you get sick while you're away and you need to come home. They can sort it out pretty quickly.
Nice. And the other one, when planning, it always comes top of mind, is obviously money. Now, the good thing is obviously volunteers have already found the one of the cheapest organisations to volunteer abroad with, which is a good start. But how about when you're planning to go volunteer in Asia? Like, should we be taking a whole heap of cash with us, or is it easier just to use cards over there? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so in all our locations there'll be ATMs there, so you can use your debit or your Visa, MasterCard type cards. But taking a little bit of cash for emergencies is usually a good idea as well. We typically say take USD with you, as that's, I guess, once you get over there, that's the most recognised, and you can exchange it to the local currency very easily. And I guess, for example, in Cambodia, they actually use USD over there as well, so that makes things a lot easier for converting. But yeah, I'd recommend bringing a little bit of cash, but then have most of your money loaded onto those cards.
Nice. Now, the other one that you've really got to think about, I guess, with Asia is just the weather, because especially in summer it can get pretty hot, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. It's I guess the weather throughout Asia can be it varies a lot. So it's definitely something you need to be prepared for. It can definitely get hot, but at the same time, we've got a few locations, so Dharamsala and Nepal, it can get very cold as well. So definitely do your research, and be quite specific with your research as well. So we've got a program in the Philippines, which is quite well known for its monsoon season, for example, but I guess that's well known in sort of Manila and those sorts of areas, whereas our program's on Palawan, so it's actually very different. So you'll have monsoons going through Manila, and you'll have beautiful, fantastic days on Palawan. So be specific with your research, really look into the location that we do work in, and then that'll help you.
Any tips for handling the heat in places like India in the heat of summer?
Yeah, it's stay in the shade would be one. And obviously drink lots of water as well. Sort of those tips your mum would give you, but they go a long way.
Now, the other thing is obviously when you're thinking about the weather and the climate and everything like that, you've got to think about what you're actually going to take with you with your packing list. Any certain must-haves that you want to have on that packing list, or anything that you should avoid bringing to Asia?
Avoid bringing too much. It's probably the classic travel tip that I give out. Pack lightly. If you do need anything, then you can probably get something over there for a quarter of the price of what you would back home. But also be prepared to sort of dress more conservatively at your placements. It's probably a big tip throughout traveling through Asia. Obviously, being quite conservative countries, you do need to be prepared to dress appropriately. We do have placements where it is quite relaxed as well, but I guess always being prepared to to dress more conservatively is probably the main tip there.
And so conservatively, you're meaning below the knees?
Yep, below the knees, covering your shoulders and your chest. It will put you in a good place. But yeah, once you get over there, you might find it's more relaxed. And so I guess be prepared for both. But as long as you have that conservative base, then you'll be fine.
Nice. Now another one that's more mum and dad are going to worry about when you're overseas or your family back home is staying connected with family back home. Firstly, what's the internet like in Asia? Are we going to have decent connections?
Yeah, for the most part you will. And if you don't have decent internet connections, then it's at your accommodation, at your placement. It's not too far away. So you usually can walk to an internet cafe. There's internet cafes or throughout Asia. And the other thing is that SIM cards are really cheap in those locations as well. So I would say if you're planning on being there for 2 weeks or longer, it's definitely worthwhile getting a little SIM card and setting up your phone that way. As long as you make sure your phone is unlocked and you can actually use those overseas SIM cards, then you'll be fine. But the data and things are really cheap over there, so you'll be able to connect with your family really easily.
Easy, too good. And speaking of family and friends, they're obviously going to be worried about your safety. I guess that happens whenever you travel anyway. Can you tell us how safe is it to actually volunteer in Asia, and what type of support do volunteers get from our local teams?
Yeah, safety is our top priority, I guess. And whenever we're setting up programs and when we're running these programs, that's always top of mind. So the local staff there are really, I guess, rehearsed in keeping volunteers safe. They know what to do. Being locals in the country as well, they know the areas that you should and shouldn't go. There's always going to be areas where you shouldn't venture, and they put, I guess, good policies in place to make sure that everyone's kept safe. It's you've got a lot of support either from the local team and from us. So as long as I guess you follow those procedures that they have in place, then you'll be fine.
And that's going to go through. I'm guessing most programs have like an orientation when you arrive.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a mix of orientations throughout Asia. There's a lot of 1 week orientation programs, whereas it's sort of a cultural week and orientation experience. But always on your first day on the placement, you'll be run through orientation, which covers the safety and all those sorts of things.
Nice. Now, also, when you actually do arrive, first and foremost, obviously, arriving in an airport on the other side of the world can be a bit scary. Is there going to be someone to pick you up, or do you need to go get your own taxi, or how does that work?
Yeah, there will always be someone there to pick you up. We've got some of our programs have set arrival times, which we'll outline to you when I guess you're registered onto the program. But there'll always be a process there, so you won't be left in the dark.
Sounds good. Now, obviously, you're going to travel to the volunteer accommodation or to the local team's offices. Can you tell us a bit about the different accommodation options available to volunteers around Asia? Obviously, it's going to be different in whatever country you're going to, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's right. So there's two main, I guess, accommodation setups. There's a volunteer house setup, which we refer to as volunteer house. It's kind of like a dormitory style setup where you'll be, I guess, in a room with 4 to 5 other volunteers, sort of on bunk beds in the same room. They all look pretty similar throughout the countries, and it's a great environment there. You'll be always surrounded by other volunteers, and then there's a homestay setup as well, where you'll be living with a local host family, and that's awesome as well. You'll always be accommodated with other volunteers in those cases. Also, so no matter where you are, you'll always be around some other volunteers of a similar age and similar interests. But there's two setups. So there's the volunteer house or the local host families. Nice.
And how about food? I'm guessing again it's going to vary, but is it good food?
It's great food. That's probably the main reason I love being part of the Asia team, is that we get to travel through there and taste all the food. And it does take a toll on your gut sometimes. But I guess that's, as long as you're prepared for that, then you'll be good to go. But it's full of flavour. There's obviously a huge variety throughout Asia. But just be prepared for it to have a bit of a backlash sometimes if you eat too much street food or things like that.
Oh, sounds good. Now, another big thing about volunteering in Asia is obviously the travel opportunities that come with it as well. So obviously during the weeks you're going to be contributing to these communities across the country you've chosen to volunteer in. But then on the weekends you've got the time to go explore. What would be your top destinations to go explore in the weekends? And
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, Asia's pretty varied. In terms of the opportunities there, so you've got the beaches, you've got, say, in Nepal, you've got the trekking. There's a huge amount of opportunity there. I did lots of diving in the Philippines, which is awesome. And I guess the greatest thing about Asia is that those sorts of opportunities are really cheap. Your dollar goes a long way there, and I guess that's probably a great way to sort of look at where you're wanting to go. If you're sort of looking at Asia and you're not sure where, maybe think about those tourist opportunities that you'd be interested in as well. So if you're interested in hiking and trekking and mountaineering, then obviously Nepal or Dharamsala, India Dharamsala would be a great option. If you're keen on diving, then we've got the Philippines, or if you're keen on beaches and things like that, we've got Bali as well. So it's a huge opportunities there.
And now we mentioned before about monsoon season in the Philippines, for example, and the weather. When is the best time to kind of go to Asia? Is there a good time? Is there a bad time to kind of go, or is it just varied across the entire continent?
In doing research on that, I think you're always going to find a good time to go somewhere in Asia. I guess it does depend on where you want to go, which is why that research around weather is so important. There's definitely going to be times where it's really, really hot, and say Delhi and things like that. But there's also going to be times where when it's hot in Delhi, there's always somewhere else to go. So in terms of a good time to go, I would say any time.
Yeah, sounds good. Now the other thing is obviously getting around to Asia. It can be relatively easy, relatively cheap. Is it easy enough to do, and is it easy enough, for example, if I wanted to do a program in one part in Asia and then combine it with another part of Asia, for example?
Absolutely, that's actually a really popular option, and we're seeing a lot of volunteers do that and really love it. So it's awesome to see, and I guess that way you get a varied idea on the different cultures within Asia. I think a lot of the time we think of Asia as this big clump when it's all pretty similar, but as soon as you get the opportunity to do a couple of different programs there, you find out the little intricacies that are quite different. It's really cool. So travel's cheap, easy. Internal flights around Asia, I'm always surprised when sort of looking at those costs. You can get a flight ridiculously cheap.
Nice. Too easy. Now the other thing we need to talk about is obviously reviews. People can take our word for it, and obviously yourself, you've been around all of the Asian programs. They're all fantastic, but obviously sometimes it's good to be able to hear it from actual volunteers who have been as well. Where are the best places to be able to find reviews on the programs that we have in Asia?
Yeah, so we've obviously got testimonials on our website, but we've also, there's some external websites you can have a look at as well, which volunteers post on sort of at their will. So you've got Go Overseas, it's a great website, Go Abroad, and also Volunteer Forever, probably the three main ones.
Nice. And now the other thing is connecting with other volunteers. Is there a chance to be able to do that before you arrive, or is it something that you'd suggest doing more when you're in the country, or how does it work?
Definitely do it before you depart. So we've got Facebook pages set up per country, so per destination. So if for example, if you're interested in going to Bali, then jump on the IVHQ Bali page, and you've got volunteers posting on there all the time, whether they're in country, whether they've been, or whether they're planning on going. So you can also ask questions there as well, and everyone's always full of advice, and every now and then we jump on to answer questions on there as well, but for the most part, if you send us an email, we can respond that way, but other volunteers are always there to help as well.
Awesome. Now, thank you so much for all the information you provided so far. Obviously, you may have some more questions that you want answered, or anything that we may not have touched on today in this webinar. Your team's obviously available to be able to help answer any questions or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what they're there for. So, fire through any questions you guys have. We're obviously more than happy to help.
So there's a couple of ways to do that. Obviously, you can go along to our website. Now, if you go to our website, in the bottom right-hand corner of the website, you're going to find a little question mark in a circle. Just click that, and you can send through some questions that way. For example, I mentioned before, if you're watching this live, you could be using the chat box right now. We'll be answering questions as we go. Otherwise, if you're watching this version on YouTube, then make sure you ask some questions in the comment section below. And again, we'll get one of the team to answer those questions as soon as possible. Otherwise, you can always flick us an email at info@volunteerhq.org, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person to look after those questions. Guys, again, thank you so much for joining us for another webinar. We hope you've found it really useful. Again, thanks, Will, so much for coming along and sharing your wisdom about volunteering in Asia. I hope it's answered a lot of people's questions.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
Sounds good. And we will see you at our next webinar. Cheers, guys.